Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Prog Monster. On this cloudy, overcast day, we're here to do our live experience. And my name is Murph, and I am the host of this show. So for those of you who follow this show, it's a show based on live venue type stuff. So we may do a video that I've seen that I think should be talked about a little bit, or we may do an experience that I've had going to a concert or whatever, and or we may do what we're going to do today, which is talk about a live album that I've listened to and just want to talk about. So today's live album, I'm sorry, a little bit blurry there, is King Crimson's USA Live. So I've listened to this now about a half dozen times since I got it. I think it's a fantastic live album. Now, again, live is subjective here. You know, a lot of this stuff is probably edited a little bit. There has to be some editing. There's usually quite a bit on the live albums. But it does have that live flavor to it. And there's a lot of distortion on this album, and when I hear a lot of distortion, that means it hasn't been edited as much as that you might think it would be. So let's talk about the album. We'll talk about the background information for the album first. So we got it was recorded in the United States by King Crimson, of course. Released on May the 3rd, 1975. About 38 minutes long. It was originally recorded at the casino in Ashbury Park, New Jersey, and also at the Palace Theater in Providence, Rhode Island. So a couple of different venues, and they've cut and pasted it, I guess, together for the parts that they want it. On Island label, I'm assuming that's in Europe or in England, and then Atlantic Records, probably most likely in the United States, and of course produced by King Crimson. Okay, so featured on this album are 5 musicians, 4 of them as members of King Crimson, 1 of them as an additional musician guest. The guest is Eddie Jobson. He does do some violin on tracks 2 and 6, and does some electric piano on track number 3. And for those of you who want to know what those tracks are, Lament is track number 2, and 21st Century Schizoid Man is track number 6 on the original album. And then we also have electric piano, which he plays also on Exiles. Okay, so the original album had 6 tracks on it. This particular version is I think a 2002 or 2004 release, has an additional 3 tracks. One of them really isn't the track, the opening walk-on. No pussyfooting, if you want to call it. It's only about 35 seconds. It's just a crowd, getting some crowd venue, and you can hear them kind of getting ready to start. The last 2, Fractured and Starless, were at it. They're lengthy tracks. I think one's like 11, the other's like 14. Really good stuff. Maybe those 2 tracks may be even better than the original stuff, which is really hard to do. But either way, it's really solid music. Okay, so then we have Robert Fripp on guitars and mellotron. We have John Wetton on vocals and bass. Bill Bruford on drums and percussion. David Cross on violin, viola. I think he's also playing electric piano, and did I write it down? Yes, I did. Yeah, and the mellotron as well. So he does do some mellotron. So yeah, you've got those 4, and then you have some Eddie Jobson doing some additional stuff as well. So 5 very, very, very good musicians here on this particular album, and it shows because there is some outstanding musicianship on this particular album. After listening to it 3 or 4 times, and I sat down and really listened to it, I couldn't believe how good the musicianship is here. So they start out, after the walk-on track, they start out with Lark's Tongues and Aspic Part 2, which we all know comes from Lark's Tongues and Aspic. So This has some great guitar, bass, and drum opening, like fantastic opening here. Some real heavy guitar crashing here, like just really solid stuff here. The guitar is really distorted in some areas too, which is really mind-boggling how he's able to grasp so much distortion. The guitar solo here is probably one of the best on the album. Really fantastic. Such a great opening to an album, right? The walk off, it comes with the remastered thing, and so you don't get that, but fantastic here. So then you go to Lament, which is the next track on the album. I think John Wetton here is vocal sound is really spot on. Some heavy kind of riffing as well. The guitar parts on here are so good as well. It's one of my I like this track. The next three tracks are the ones that I enjoyed the most. Exile, which is the first one. Wetton on vocals here, really strong, really frontal. I should really learn to write more clear, to be honest with you. One of these days I'm going to get it though. You got some real heavy guitar and violin parts here at the beginning as well. Some nice kind of overall instrumentation. I just think is really catchy on this tune. I like the riffing that goes with this tune. It's a real catchy kind of riff. Then you get to Ashbury Park, which I think it's first of all, it's an instrumental. There's no vocals on this track. The bass tone on this is heavy, so good. My appreciation for John Wetton went up a notch here. I always had a bit of issues with him, and I think that dates back to when he was with Asia, and I think he kind of forced Steve Howe out the door, which kind of bothered me. It shouldn't have bothered me because Steve Howe went on to do better stuff, but it bothered me for some reason, and so I just had a real difficulty with him because he did that in the previous band called UK as well, which so I got a bit of a personal issue with him, but not with his musicianship, and his vocals are outstanding. Just the bass tone on this is amazing, and the guitar is even more amazing. It's off the charts here, just so good. The distortion is fantastic. His control of the distortion is even more fantastic. It's just such a good heavy track. I'm not a big instrumental fan, but I do like this one a lot. Next track up, Easy Money, is the third of the trilogy for me of songs that I really like on here. Very heavy opening, and then it's kind of followed by this kind of mellow part, which I think is really well done. Like they bring it fits right in. It doesn't sound out of place at all. The vocals again are very frontal. His voice is so catchy. The overall, I think this is probably the most catchy tune on the album. Just really strong instrumentation. Just real catchy. You find yourself like intently listening to it. Yeah. So then we go to the last track on the album, which is 21st Century Schizoid Man, which is of course off the Court of the Crimson King. And not a track that I've ever really liked much. I don't know what it is about this track. I think because my original listening to this track comes from April Wine, which I really didn't enjoy it with them. And it's kind of, there's a little bit of that holdover. And even though King Crimson does a much better version of the song and it's much catchier, and the original version with Greg Lake is really good, but this version is better. I think Wetton and Lake sound so much alike, but Wetton is, I think, a stronger vocalist, like a louder. I think he might be a better bass player too. Although I do like Greg Lake's bass playing quite a bit as well. So then you get this kind of, it's a heavy track, as most of you know this song if you've listened to it. Vocals are strong. This is a very underrated distortion song of their repertoire, if you ask me. I think it's exquisite and it's very well done, especially live. But live, it just sounds so much heavier. I'm not sure why or how they were able to get that, but it just sounds so much heavier on this version of the song. And so I like this quite a bit too. Even though I'm not a big fan of this song, I've kind of warmed up to it because of this live version. So then you go, and there's a couple of extra tracks. I'm not going to talk too much about them, only to say that they're both, in some ways, I think they're both better than anything else on the album, which is, when you hear this album, you're going to be mind blown. You know, it's so good. And then you got these 2 extra tracks, which are like fantastic. Fractured, some excellent guitar, nice percussion work, some strong bass on it, and Starless, of course. What are you going to say about Starless? It's fantastic. Very underrated song, I think. I don't know how it can be underrated when everybody loves it, but I guess it is. Just, this is so good, so good. I think if you haven't had a chance to listen to this album, get the newer version. Whatever this is. Is this a remastered version? I think it is. Oh, this is the 30th anniversary edition. That's what this is. So I think it's 2005 then, right? Yeah. So yeah, get this version. Those extra 2 songs are well worth having for this particular album. And I think they were recorded at the same time in the same places. They just had never been added. They weren't added to the original 40-minute version for obvious reasons. It was vinyl and they were very long, both very long tracks, like 11 and 14 minutes total. So it appears to me they cut them because they only had so much room on the album in those days. It would have pushed the vinyl to the limit, so they didn't want to push it to the limit, I'm sure, because people's listening attention starts to wane after 35 or 40 minutes, at least in that period of time. People maybe they have a better attention span today, I don't know. So they added these 2 to the CD release. Well worth having. I just think this is one of the better live albums I own. I've only listened to it a half dozen times and I'm so impressed with it. So good. So anyways, there you have it. King Crimson live in the USA. I guess it was live, I think I already said this, but it was live in New Jersey and in Rhode Island at 2 different venues, and they just put the songs they wanted together. Probably cut quite a few tracks out of it, but the 2 that they added to this disc are fantastic. So I hope you like this video. If you do, please like and subscribe. It's much appreciated. Next week, we of course will be back to the psychedelic snack, as it's the off week for the live experience. For those of you who don't know, I do them alternating. One week I do the psychedelic snack, and the next week I do the live experience. So I hope to see you next week for the psychedelic snack. We have a guest fill-in for that show, as Brother Murphy is unavailable. So have yourself a good week and enjoy the rest of your day. Take care and bye.